Alright, welcome to my channel, all you author tubers. I am going to make an attempt to express what I kind of feel is my opinion on what suspense is and how to make it work. It's up to you to decide whether or not you like what I say, but first off, definition of suspense. Think of it as putting a character in some type of situation that will hold the reader's interest, that makes them hanging on the edge of their seat. Good or bad, what have you, doesn't matter, just so long as the reader has a heightened interest in the character that you've written about. My video isn't going to be very long, but I'm going to give you how I work things and the way I understand suspense. So, first off, let's take an example. Let's just say a man was about to fall. You have no idea why. You have no inkling of who he is. You don't know if he's your neighbor, someone you care about, or someone that you want to fall. No idea. No suspense there, obviously. About at this point, only your imagination can set more of the scene, so that's not really where we want to leave it off if we're going to be writing suspense. Let's try this. A man with his hands full was about to fall. Does that make things a little bit more interesting? Maybe. You're probably curious. What's he got in his hands? Is it the reason he's going to fall? You have just a little bit more. With his hands full, he might not be able to catch himself when he's falling, simply because he can't let go of whatever he has in his hands, or he might drop what he has to catch himself. Whatever it is, it gives you a little bit more curiosity, but still there's no real connection. But let's see what we can do. I'll get back to the man, but this time let's add a camera. Somewhere in the scene there's a camera. Now, what are we watching? Could this be a funny video? Could we be watching some guy falling at an airport, up or down an escalator, in his backyard? Or could it be something more serious? Someone pushed him, start of a fight. We don't know, but there's a little bit more interest there. Still, I wouldn't consider it to be suspense. Now here's something top of my head. Let's go ahead and see what we could do with this. We're going to add some more. This man had desperately ran into his burning home to rescue his infant son. It was his only son, whom had been sleeping while his father had stepped out to investigate a strange noise. The mother had passed away during the childbirth, leaving both the infant and the father with only each other as family. He was a good man and struggled every day to be both father and provider. They had just moved to this town and had no one else to rely upon. The man rushed into the home, seeing the flames crowd the hallways and ceiling beams with smoke becoming thick, hot, and choking. Though tired, without breath, and gaining burns on his arms and head, he rushed past the flames to gather his son within his cradled arms. Beams began to fall and burn on the floor, cluttering his path to the exit. One such beam catches his foot and he starts to fall. Okay, can you see the difference now? Here I asked you to be part of two different ways to add suspense. Hopefully, if you have watched some of the other AuthorTube videos, you would already recognize both. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. The first one, emotional ties. With the first part of the examples, you know, the guy falling, this and that and the other, there's no real emotional ties to the character that you have. This is what you want to build. This can possibly be the more difficult of the two ways to express suspense. It involves a reasonable amount of writing of both the situation and a bit of background for the character or characters involved. If the reader doesn't have an emotional tie to the character, then the situation that he or she is put in will have little impact, except the plot, of course, and quite possibly a weak plot at that. Take your time, build a personality, a history, and a life for the character. The more important to the plot that the character is, the more you can develop the emotional bond and the more the impact of the suspense. In my example, the character was in a life or death situation, but suspense is most often found with the day-to-day decisions. Meeting a romantic interest for the first time, a job interview, or confronting an unpleasant person. The emotional buildup, combined with a few situational details, will make the suspense come much more naturally. Alright, on to my second example. I call this the weave. I'm sure other people call it this as well, but if not, it's my own thing. But the weave. In the example I used, before there was an emotional bond, I used bits and pieces of details. If your story has a goal or an objective that people could grasp and interest to right away, the weave of the history, even without an emotional bond, can build up the suspense. It has to do with people wanting to see the falling man in their mind. If I just said there's a man, so what? But falling. It is unusual, out of the ordinary, and has potential. Just one or two words can build the interest. Falling, loving, losing or winning, lost or found. These are words that almost tell a story. If used right, then the reader will hold to the weave until the suspense builds, then hang on for its conclusion. Okay, this is another point that many people ignore, and I had to learn this for my profession. I'm a retired doctor, and dealing with people every day, sometimes people understand what you're saying, sometimes they don't, and you have to learn to figure out why they don't understand it. Well, the basic thing is people communicate on 3 different ways, 3 different levels. It doesn't mean one's better than the other, it's just 3 different things. If you can seamlessly weave all 3 of these together, you're going to be much more successful. Now let's go ahead and talk about the 3 ways. The first one, and it's no particular order, but the first one, there are people who respond most to thinking or seeing, words like he thought or she saw or they imagined. The people when they talk with their hands because they're expressing visual. These can communicate much more to those type of learners. This person thought, this person saw. You describe a scene. It pulls the mental and the visual responding people in much more. And the second way, and this often tends to be the majority, people learn with emotional words. He felt, she enjoyed, they feared. These words are easy to grab hold of the person who is an emotional learner. The better those are weaved together, the easier it is to tie them to the character or the situation. Okay, the third way is basically by hearing. There are a lot of people that learn most easily by listening to podcasts, listening to lectures, listening to storybooks. It comes to their mind much faster. And if you use words in that sense, then you're going to have a better way of communicating. Like, I heard voices, she listened to the music, or they heard the wind as it hit the trees. Each one of those catches somebody a little bit different, and for the listener, it catches them much more easily, draws them in. So like in our first example, let's put the father into the story using all 3 and try and build a bit more suspense. Here we go. The father could hear the cries of his son, yelling out in fear. The father knew it was a risk, life or death, going into the flames that were bellowing out the windows from half of his home. But his love for his son overcame that fear. All right. Hear the cries. Know the risk. Describe the flames, fear, and love. That short paragraph used all 3. So basically, as an overview, when you're going to do suspense, at least in my view, the way to most effectively do suspense, and you want to reach the greatest number of people, is to build your character with an emotional bond. Paint the scene using words that try and touch on all 3 types of learning, with the mind, with the vision, with the heart, and with sound. You don't have to over-describe it. Just put them in the right way, the right time, for the right impact. And maybe it takes a rewrite here or 2, or change of a word so you don't repeat. Like the word fear, you don't repeat fear so much. Apprehension you could throw in, or see, or you can describe things. Instead of I saw a tree, you could say there was a beautiful tree with lots of leaves. When all these things are combined with your main character, you can put them in just about any situation you want, and there's going to be a bit of suspense. It'll come easier to you the more you do it and the more you think about these things. Anyway, that's how I do it. If you guys like it, great. If it helps you, fantastic. If not, well, there's a lot of other people that are putting out videos today, and I really hope that you go and check them out and see what they have to offer. Maybe it'll help you out with your writing, make things a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, and a lot more suspenseful. This is Adega. Have a wonderful day.